I loved writing my autobiography. I thought it was one of the coolest essays you get to write because you basically get to take your own life and apply what you learn to that. And I think that's really valuable. It's kind of setting you up to continue doing that throughout your life.
It allows you to be as personal as you want to be.
When you think about writing your socio-autobiography, see if you can use the wonderful concepts that sociologists have managed to explain and elaborate over time, and see yourself mirrored in those concepts.
I think the number one thing I should always remember when doing any form of autobiography is to follow your curiosity. What in your life did you look at and think, man, why was that the way it was? For me, I really focus on racialization.
Look at things you may not or may have looked at before, like class and age and gender and ethnicity and sexuality and the cages model that you've probably learnt about, and you know, really analyse that and think critically.
It's because I always wondered, why was my dad never seen as a New Zealander? Why was he always a collection of racial slurs? Why was he a Polynesian first and New Zealander second, when in reality my dad was born in New Zealand? That was my focus. I was always curious, and I didn't want to approach it with anger or hate or vitriol. I wanted to approach it with academic rigor. So that was my socio-autobiography. It was a manifestation of a lifelong curiosity.
I think becoming immersed in the sociological imagination, like in the theory, and kind of trying to see from that perspective first is really helpful.
Educate yourself with your own curiosity. Follow what really grinds your gears and try answer the question using what you have learned.
Look into the things that influence me, whether that's my friends or the media or like anything along those kind of social influence lines, and see how my life is as a result. But not just with me, with other people I see around me as well.
You're not just talking about who you are, you also need to apply how society has influenced who you are.
How do you see yourself within the social order, or social disorder as the case may be? Do you see yourself as internally divided? Do you see your families as internally divided? Reminisce on your childhood, reminisce on your adolescence, your youth, and see if that means, if you can see anything sociological about it. See if what you've learned can be applied reflexively to your upbringing.
Choosing the concepts that you actually care about or want to talk about, rather than choosing concepts that you'll just regurgitate, because I feel like you're not going to learn anything if you're just regurgitating information.
Stick to your key concepts and try and find examples that you feel comfortable in talking about and expanding on from the sociological imagination.
For your autobiographies, make sure that you find a theorist and a theory that relates to your life events, so that it will make it easier for your marker to understand and also yourself to understand how your life events is relevant to those particular theories.
I think it's a really good time to sort of reflect on how you have been, constructed socially.
Figuring out through applying sociological concepts to your life who you are and where you stand amongst yourself and in society. It makes you realize things about yourself you never knew.
I think it's a bit of soul searching, and you should really take advantage of it, not just to try and get a good mark in this paper, but actually just to be a better person.
Taking something out of the class besides an A+ is more meaningful, and actually knowing the inequality that is inherent in our society is important.
I think it's quite rare that university sort of assessments give you that opportunity to actually talk about yourself.
I would just recommend enjoying it, but also getting started early so you can really do it justice. Yeah, that's key, I think.
If the socio-autobiography leaves you in a bad place, or you find difficulty in answering the question, hey man, that's why you're here. Ask the difficult questions.
Chill would be my first advice.
It can be quite overwhelming. I remember my first year not really understanding what was going on, but that's very common, I think, in your first year. You're still kind of trying to figure out what you're doing with yourself.
Even if you think it's a dumb question, I think it's important to just ask.
Sociology lecturers are actually really friendly, like they're approachable.
My general advice would be to study hard. Obviously have lots of fun, but yeah, just if you have any questions or issues, always ask the lecturer. They'll be more than happy to clarify. And your tutors are also there for help, so just utilise whatever's around you and yeah, have some fun along the way.
There are tutors that are there to help you, and at the time, my first year, I could have done so much better if I resourced myself.
If you're having trouble, just talk to your lecturers or tutors. Like, no need to be like completely confused about it.
You're wasting your time here if you're not making the most out of your experience, so definitely make sure you talk to your tutors and your lecturers.
Don't be afraid to ask questions and be brave. Be brave to kind of question your tutors, question your lecturers, your family, your friends, and most importantly, question yourself. And don't be afraid to ask yourself the questions that will shake those unshakable beliefs, because if they're real and if they're true, they will withstand the questioning from yourself and others.
Academic writing is a skill you learn. You don't just know how to, it's not just a conversation you have, it's more complex than that.
Do your readings.
In your first year of sociology, do your readings, because these things offer a foundation of knowledge.
Do a lot of reading. Make sure you're reading a lot of academic articles so you can see how they lay things out and you can emulate that.
Reading is an important skill. Reading critically is vitally important.
Make sure that you're doing a lot of research and that you're putting a lot of references and backing your arguments well. Like, just for any sociology essays in general, I'd go to either your tutor or a librarian and ask them how to use the databases.
I know they're kind of depressing in a lot of these places, but that's the point. The point is you have to sit down and do the hard work now, because as you progress into your second, your third, perhaps your fourth year and beyond, you're going to learn something and appreciate the toolset that you have that gives you a better way of seeing the world.
I remember when I was an undergrad, I'd read these sort of heavy theoretical texts and I'd really struggle to try get my head around it. Then I found a little trick that I found really helpful, and I still find helpful. As I read a paragraph, I think about how I can relate it to my life. So I would put in the side of the paragraph, Mom and Dad, or Lata, and Lata's my sister, and something. I would put it there because I find that it just brings these ideas to life.
Grammar checks, because I always sucked at that.
Don't miss class. It's a no-brainer, it's an easy one, it's a slippery slope. Once you miss one class, you'll miss a second class, you'll miss a third class.
Look back old exams for when going over the multi-choice at the end.
Thinking sociologically is really a trap. I mean, you will never be able to unlearn this kind of thing. You will never be able to stop critiquing and reflexivizing. You're stuck in it now. But use it. And be able to try and develop those skills, those pedagogical skills. Teach others, enlighten others.
Just don't look at sociology as just a paper. Don't look at sociology as just a bunch of theories, just a bunch of old people, making theories up and whatnot. It's more than that. It's more about thinking out of your comfort zone, looking at your own surroundings, and being more aware.
If I had to give any advice for a sociology student, the number one thing is education is not predicated on your grade, it's how you left that course. So, can you say that you left that course a better person than you were previously? Because if you can say, yes, in fact, I am better than I was before, you've done the job. I don't care if it's a C, I don't care if it's an A, as long as you gained something, a better way of seeing the world, and a better way of seeing others, perhaps a better way of seeing yourself, you've done something far greater than an A+ could ever give you.
Really just take advantage of this privilege that you're in, and never take it for granted, because there are people out there, and you will learn about this in sociology, but there are people out there who don't have the luxury of having this education, and don't even have the luxury of like this paper, because this paper and this sort of discipline really helps you to understand that there are different people, different perspectives, and it's just about respecting that.
There's ups and downs, you know, I think just keeping on.
Don't panic. Just breathe. If you need help, ask for it. There's so much there for you. Yeah, just go for gold. Enjoy your first year of uni.